Welcome to Across the Desk and our new series in partnership with Maddy Dever, the Autistic Rambler. Maddy is a non-binary autistic advocate engaged in political advocacy, a parent of 5, and a very funny person. I think we're going to have a lot to talk about, and we look forward to you joining the conversation. Now let's get to rambling.
For this.
You are always dressed in the nicest. Anyway.
No, but this it's Autism Month, so I figured that I'm gonna wear autism shirts during the month.
To find my okay. So before, because we did this last time, because I just listened to our previous podcast. So we got to do this part and then we jump into that part. So hello and welcome to Across the Desk. My name is Elizabeth Plouffe and I am the host of Across the Desk. And I have the pleasure of welcoming Maddy Dever, who I affectionately call Betty Cookie, as my co-host on this series, which is our Autistic Rambler series. And that's based off of Maddy's work on their blog and some other stuff. So hello.
Hello. It's good to be here in the middle of, the beginning of the Autism Acceptance Month in throughout the world. And I'm wearing today, in case we don't actually do video, I'm wearing an autism, a shirt that's got autism rating, and it's got a picture of a jalapeno with different ratings. We start off at the bottom of what's
lemon and herb, mild, medium,
lemon and herb, mild, medium, and extra
Maddy.
Spicy with an arrow at it pointing to me. My autism is extra spicy.
I think you just as an individual, autism aside, are extra spicy, which is why we get along very well.
Yeah.
So as it always happens, this is a Wednesday. And the reason that's significant is that when Maddy and I started the Autistic Rambler series, we decided to be very organized. And Wednesdays were our planning days and Fridays were our record days. But invariably what happens is we meet on Wednesdays, have a great chit chat, and then something happens on Fridays and one or the other of us grabs the bed and, something gets in the way. But as Maddy said on our previous podcast, something will be said and it sparks this great conversation. So what we're trying out as an experiment is if they start to say something smarty party pants, which they invariably do, I pause, I ask permission, and I say, can we just start recording now? Because we know come Friday, we're going to forget everything that we said today. And all of these, we think we're pretty wise, but so I'm going to give you some context about what we're going to talk about today. So I am a parent, and I have 2 kids, one of whom diagnosed as autistic at 7 with what was then in the DSMV with Asperger's syndrome. And there are parts of the autism community that still do Asperger's, and there are parts that do not. Fortunately, we go both ways. Don't do it. Because there are certain audiences when I speak to them, and that could be individuals, it could be who understand Asperger's, and it just makes my life easier sometimes. Maddy is in an extremely unique position, not only being an extra spicy autistic individual themselves, but also the parent for autistic kids. So 4 out of 5?
4 out of 5. Yeah.
4 out of 5. So that's like a royal flush or something.
I was going to say 4 to 5 autistics approve of this message.
4 out of 5 approve of Maddy as their parent. So there's unique perspectives on both sides. But I think what we've discovered in the last little while is that according to community norms, we parent our autistic people quite differently than what we experience out in the community. And I started noticing this probably about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. Oh my God. When I started working with Autism Job Club. But what I'm seeing come to roost now is the difference between how I parent and how I would say semi-comfortably the majority of the autism community parents. Recognizing completely that there is a spectrum of autism, there is a spectrum of parenting. I am comparing apples to apples as far as abilities and intellectual levels and whatever. So Maddy and I started talking about that, and you began to say something very wise, of course.
Yes. The biggest challenge that I've been seeing over the last couple of years, really working with families, working with clinicians and whatnot, looking at different programs, is that parents, especially when they're just getting a diagnosis, when their children's needs are at probably its most intensive,
Yeah.
they don't have the capacity to take the fire hose of information that would help them support their kids best. And when we tend to focus on giving them programs instead of finding a way of giving them support to be
Yep.
able to build that capacity. And it's something that, as I've been going through, like really getting involved in a lot of things over the last 2 to 3 years, but especially this last year, building parent capacity is my biggest priority for at least the next little while. Like, I want to support autistics as well and support clinicians, but there's a real need to support parents who are struggling, and
You're on the struggle
it is
bus, man.
something.
I've been there.
Yeah, I mean, we like being a parent. I live my life with the lens of being autistic and the lens of being a parent, and a parent of autistic kids as well, which is a whole other lens of being a parent. And there have been different points in my kids' life where, in each of the kids' lives, where their needs have been more intense and more pressing. And you have the in the family challenges, but you also
Mm.
have the school system and the
Oh, yeah.
huge challenges of dealing with them. And then you have the support structure challenges of people in the know, experts, and I have bunny ears around that because many people call themselves experts, but there's a large variety of people who are in the field of autism trying to give you advice or telling you what to do or say, hey, use this, use that. And then you have family and friends all telling you what you're doing wrong, and it becomes like
Oh,
you're
yeah.
experiencing the challenges that your children may be having as well as all the stuff around it. And some parents, at points in their time, don't have the ability, the capacity. I'm going to use it's not about ability, it's the capacity to be able to, again, take in that fire. Big lightning. We're in the middle of a thunderstorm here.
Oh, we are too. Yeah. So, by the
Yeah.
way, if we suddenly cut out, so we're coming to you from Ontario, and Maddie's out near, sorry, Maddie's out near Ottawa, and I'm very lucky that I don't actually have. I'm in my office in a tech incubator, and I have a front door window that goes to a hallway. So I don't actually have to see the lightning and thunder and whatever right now. But we're also on the eighth floor. So if there is a particularly loud crack, oh yeah, we get it. So if we suddenly cut out, that's because we have no power.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Um,
so
yeah, so they don't have
one
the
of the
parents don't
things,
have the capacity to handle, again, that fire hose of stuff, that if they were able to
also
if they were
generic
able to
though.
handle it. What?
So
What?
what I found, because a lot of the advice that I got given for my son, and sometimes solicited, sometimes unsolicited, was
Yeah,
generic because that person knew somebody. So either the advice was very generic,
yeah,
or it was based on that person's one experience with one autistic person somewhere else in the
yeah,
community who
yeah,
was not apples to apples with my kid. And I'm like, okay,
yeah.
but understand that my son is verbal, active.
Yep.
There a lot of the stereotypical autistic behaviors we didn't have with him. We also had a very structured home because that's just better for all kids. And I did a whole bunch of work on my own before we even knew he was autistic,
Yeah,
partly because my parents love them love them to death, literally. Um, Made some choices that I did not want to repeat, but I had, things change.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you do get to this point where the hose is just, it feels like, what is that thing where they like whip you with a fire hose? I don't know where they do that, but You
No,
feel beat.
at protests, sometimes they'll do that to push people away, to keep them
I
from
honestly
whatever
wish I
fun
could
they're.
have done that at certain points in my son's evolution because I got so sick and tired of people coming up to me going, "Oh, I know somebody who's autistic. You should do this." I'm like, "Great.
Oh
I know
God, yeah,
somebody who's
yeah,
black. Does that
yeah,
mean they can dance? Like, what kind of like, are you kidding me?" Yeah, well, I just watched so I say that with respect because I just watched a fantastic video and this woman is a researcher and she's like, by the way, all of us can trace our lineage back to a spot in Africa, some whatever.
yep,
So I don't
exactly,
say that in a critical way at all, but we should never
yeah,
believe stereotypes about any culture or any race
yeah,
or any, you know,
yeah,
disability. What I caution is that you cannot abdicate responsibility for your kid to services. And I'm
no,
not saying not use them. Absolutely, you should access them. Absolutely, you need to investigate. But how do I say this? I can't say it nicely. You have to fight for your kid. And I am
yeah,
seeing now what happens with parents who have not, and I don't mean fight systems or fight services, but you need to be willing to put a line in the sand with your kids'
yeah,
behavior and your expectations of them and saying, this is as low as we go. This is what
yeah,
I'll accept from you, and this is what I won't. And you can kick
yeah.
and scream and fight and have a shit fit, and I give zero
It is
because you are
scientifically,
capable of doing this.
yeah, it is scientifically proven that, especially with autistics, the more parental involvement in the supports, therapies, whatever you want to call it, the more the
The
parents
better
are
the
involved with
outcome.
that. And it's the same thing you think of in education. When parents are more active involved in their kids' educational life, those kids do better, right?
Yep,
You get the outlier that can do it all themselves, but generally, when you participate and help out and are aware of the work that the kids are doing and can have the conversations with them, like they do better. And it's the same thing with when it comes to um, the supports for autistics. You send them off to care and use that as your respite time without any knowledge of what they're doing. You can't expect the kid to generalize that learning at home. And I've
exactly.
talked to some parents who they joke that their kids graduated early from whatever the program was. Why? Because they were an equal participant. Like
Yeah.
the child's the client, but the parents, if the parents aren't involved, they're they're not going to have the capacity to be able to support the child, and they're going to
Knowledge
wonder.
capacity.
They're going to keep putting money after money after money after money into the therapy or the support, thinking that they're not getting it because it's not happening to them at home. But we find that when they're they're an active part of that support, that therapy, that whatever, they're able to do the same things at home, to have the environment that the kids can generalize in, and those
Consistency.
kids, the outcomes are far better. I'm not going to define what those outcomes are, but there's a definite feel that parents know how to support their kids, and they know how to adapt when things are a little bit different, because parents need adaptive skills just as much as autistic kids
Yeah.
need to learn adaptive skills.
So part of that, one of the reasons we're talking about this is because my company, Spiro Careers Canada, um, one of my business partners is an autism employment specialist, but she's worked with the autism community in a variety of capacities for many years. And what she has also identified is that yes, autism can create constraints around certain things. So if somebody doesn't do well with loud noises and they have sensory issues around texture, then you are not going to pursue becoming a baker. You are not going to pursue, working in a gravel pit. You're not going to pursue um, becoming like a PhD in chemistry where you're going to be exposed to strong smells and right. So you work within the. I get that.
Mhm.
What makes me nuts is how parents, well, you're laughing, but it's true. Um, how they inadvertently create learned helplessness because their default is it's just easier for me to do it. And
Yeah.
I am meeting more and more people who are past an age where they should be completely self-sufficient within their capacity, right? So we're also talking about
Yeah.
the autism capacity. And when we say parenting capacity, there's a couple of different ways to interpret that. So capacity is how much energy do you have to expend, right? If you
Yeah.
are already balancing a full-time job plus managing the house and whatever, I understand. And hear me now, got the diagnosis of my son when he was 7, and I was working full time and managing that. So I'm not saying this from a princess perspective that I had a nanny and whatever. That was not a thing. 2 kids,
Yeah.
house, full-time job, pets, husband, not in that order. And I had to, I know, it kind of puts it, he actually, yeah, and he's been amazing. Um, and yes, it was hard.
The
And
pet.
I got yelled at because I was tough as boots on Thomas. And he would give me a bit of a whinge, or he would, start this learned helplessness crap that he had learned at school. And I'd be like, don't try that with me. You don't
Yeah.
have to get it right the first time, but you don't not try because you might not get it right
Yeah.
the first time. And I will
Yeah.
help you. As long as you're trying, I will help you. And now at 25, does his own laundry, does his own shopping, mows the lawn, walks the dogs, takes out the garbage, takes out the recycling. Did that take reminding? Did that take instruction? Did that take consistency on my part? Did
Yeah.
it take periodic F bombs to get him moving? 600%. Was it easy?
Yeah.
No freaking way.
Yeah.
But look where he is now. And I see individuals his age who do not even know how to do their own laundry. They don't know
Yeah.
how to take public transport, like transport. They don't know
Mhm.
how to sign up for a course and manage it themselves. And people, we are here, and from the day we are born, we are dying.
That's
What
true.
is going to happen if you don't make capacity now and give these skills and train these skills into your kids, and you're gone?
Yeah. One of the things I did this year, there's been a couple parent mediated behavior management programs I decided I need to read it. I need to see what they're trying to teach parents, and like what's the end goal, who is the designer. And one of the things, like, I this is how, between that and being part of um like a bi-monthly family program, teaching program, I realized that there if you're expecting parents to teach kids time management or to teach kids routines, and you don't have that skill yourself,
Sorry.
you can't get kids to do the stuff that you don't have the,
That you're not
like.
modeling.
Yeah, and what I do find is with many parents is, like, in that 2 to 3 year period between you are starting to see signs and characteristics of something, and you actually getting a diagnosis of something for that child. That's an intense,
Primo
no,
time.
yeah, and you'll, because you're spending so much time and energy trying to, plug the water, literally,
Yep.
stop, put out the fires and whatnot. Like, you lose, if you had a sense of structure and organization, but it wasn't very strong, it's sort of eradicated in that period, and then you're stuck with trying to build it new, and because you've got a new world, a new vision, and you're everything that you sort of thought has changed. It's not gone, because
Yeah, but it's the
I
difference
and I
between building
don't.
structure with Q-tips and building
Yeah,
structure with Lego, right?
exactly.
So when my kids were born, obviously it didn't occur to us. I was reflecting on this last night, actually, which is kind of weird. So never occurred to me that autism would come into our life because at that
Yeah.
time, nobody in our family, as far I had a quirky uncle, but that was it. And now in my generation of cousins, On my mom's side in particular, there is myself, one cousin, two cousins. I think there's three cousins. So there's four of us on my mom's side, and my mom was one of five who have autistic sons.
Yeah.
And there's one individual on my dad's side who has an
Yeah.
autistic son. But when your child is born, you have absolutely no idea that that could be coming down the pipe. So
Yeah.
what I encourage parents is put that structure in place right away, regardless of diagnosis, because structure is
Exactly.
good for kids in general, and it's good for
Yep.
you because chaos creates frustration, which creates fear, which creates bad
Yeah.
reactions, which creates more chaos and anxiety and everything
Yeah.
else. And then your kid, if they do turn out to be autistic, that is a heavy load of emotion and sensory input that you're putting out there. And don't ever think, ever, ever, ever think, regardless of where somebody falls on the spectrum, that they don't pick that up and that doesn't
Oh
impact
God.
their day.
Yeah.
But there's a
Yeah.
lot of people who believe, especially if you are on an end of the spectrum where you might not be verbal or you might not appear to be engaging, that they don't pick that up. Oh, it doesn't bother them. Oh,
Yeah.
sugar nuts. Like, sorry,
Yeah. So
sorry. I had a
yeah,
moment because
no problem.
I'm seeing
Yeah.
now fallout
Yeah.
of not doing this.
It's I was going to say something. I'll mention one thing. Like the spectrum isn't a more a horizontal, more autistic, less autistic. It's it's like a color wheel where you've got different domains, and at different times you're going to have strengths and challenges. And
Yep.
those challenges, like a kid may have challenges with speaking, so communication can be a really difficult thing. But they're bright as hell, right? They're
Yep.
able to do things
Yep.
and things, and sometimes the challenge masks the strengths, and sometimes the challenge requires you to focus so much in that area. And it's really important that we see. I mean, I think parents sometimes get that they see more of the kid, and they want people to see all the other parts of the kid, except like the other than the challenge that can be like the tip of the iceberg in the child's the whole iceberg.
Yep. Yep.
Um, but it's I'm gonna have to think about what I lost when I jumped into that.
It'll come back because you just gave
It's
me an idea
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we're not going to go we tend to go for about an hour by the time we're done because we say we're done and then something comes up. But one thing that I would get our brains stewing on, right? So, in light of what we have found in the autism community, um, because I didn't know any other way to parent. I grew up in a very structured, here's the expectation, do as you're told, and everybody contributes to the household and whatever it is, right? And on whatever level that can be, that's age appropriate. It did not occur to me not to do things similarly in that capacity. And then when you get it, my son has a triple diagnosis, right? So he's autistic, ADHD, and dyslexic. So imagine navigating that little gene pool. Super fun
Yeah.
around creating structure and enforcing it and whatever. But if we were to look at what you and I have done from a parenting perspective, that appears to be different than the rest of the world, which I still find quite shocking because it just makes sense. And I'm
Yeah.
not putting anybody down because everybody grows up
No.
differently and whatever, but
Yeah.
this is my little Spock brain and this is how it goes. Um, what's one of the things that has, I know one thing that's worked really well for both of us, I think, but I'd be intrigued if you say the same thing. Um, Discipline. And I'm not talking corporal. I'm talking
Yeah.
reasonable,
Yeah.
communication-based discipline. There you
Now I
go.
remember
See?
where
Oh, um, please don't think that autistic kids don't need discipline and
Yeah.
consequences because they do. All
Yeah.
right, go.
So
Light
I
bulb went
remember
off.
what I said. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So um we it's important to have structure, right?
Yeah.
Because when you have structure, you can then have flexibility. If you
Yeah.
don't have structure, if you don't have some even loose plans of how things are going to go in a day, in a moment, in a situation, then you're randomly flying by the seat of your pants, and you can end up having things happen to you instead of letting things happen. And I love there's a quote, and we may have said this in a podcast before, but there's a quote from the Flash TV show, and where Captain Cold is the Flash has asked Captain Cold, who was a villain, to help him do a break in to get out a metahuman. And so his approach, Captain Cold's approach to is that you gotta make the plan, you gotta execute the plan. The plan's going to
Yep.
derail, and then you got to change the plan.
Yep.
Right. But if you don't
100%
have
agree.
a plan, you're just randomly doing things. And what changes me, that's really helped, especially one of my kids, is it's all, if the meals are done on in a regular time and you have a nighttime routine,
Mm-hmm.
then you have a morning, the morning will happen properly. You'll have, both you and the child will be better regulated because you've had enough food and you have enough sleep. The during the day it might not be as as regular, but if you have a nighttime, like an evening and a nighttime routine, everything else happens better. And when we
I'm just
did
taking
that,
notes.
it was just huge. And there's a reason I think that you can really see and understand why autistics need structure is the kids that maybe haven't been diagnosed or have just sort of gotten through without much assistance, and they do really well in school. School is structured. It's also
Yep.
one of the reasons why when kids come home, they may be a little bit like loosey goosey because they've had the structure all day long. They thrive in it, but it can't be a 100% thing. They need some time to stretch. But
Turn
those
off time.
kids that
Yep.
did really well in high school end up going to college or university or working, and they fall completely apart because they need to create the structure themselves now. And so if they've learned structure and they see structure at home as well as at school, again, loose structure, but enough structure that there's things to do. They're going to have some of those skills to make some of that structure themselves at college, when parents or teachers or whatever have less involvement in your life. Like if we can learn how to create our own structure, I think parents have done it. I think parents can see that as one of those positive outcomes of their parenting. Because
See, I see that with my
it's
son.
not a natural thing for autistics to create structure. It is not. We
Well,
need it. We sort of go with whatever, but you end up seeing, where do we fail? Where there wasn't enough structure. Where do we have
yep.
mental health challenges? We don't have enough structure. We need some structure. Some. And
I think so.
it's amazing what happens when, and that's what I'm talking about, parent capacity. If parents don't
Yep.
know how to do that, that's where they need support first to be able to do that.
Exactly.
And then they can create the structure for their kids. I remember my mom trying to, okay, I love my mom, but she was unstructured. She was chaos. My dad, love him. He was chaos, no structure. I had no example of structure in my life. I had to learn it late in life. And I'm glad I
Oh
did, because
no,
I think my kids are going to do
mine were the other side of the tracks. They
Oh
were
my
the
God. I but but the thing was, they were heavily supported. And I forget why I'm saying this, but I've had to undo that learning. It was so, I look at all of the times where I haven't done well. It's without structure. I need I loved in Nortel, which was a great place to be for neurodivergents for a while, until it all came crumbling down, because I think there was there weren't neurodivergent people in the finance department. That's what I'm thinking. If you don't have
oh, to
neurodivergents in
catch the
finance,
discrepancies.
exactly, to catch the anomalies.
Yeah.
But the thing I the
So what you're
IT
saying is,
department,
Maddy, Trump should have had somebody who was neurodivergent on his staff, and he wouldn't be where
Uh-huh.
he is right now. I'm just saying.
He probably if somebody with neurodivergent was on his staff, he probably wouldn't have run.
Well, he
They
probably
probably
would have
would have
fired
gone to
them
run
within
as a
five
governor
minutes for not
someplace
being a
else.
yes man and
Yeah,
we don't like
yeah.
Trump.
So yeah, they would probably made him governor of Florida, because yeah, we don't like chaos hitting the country. Yeah, there would have been less chaos. He's a thing of his own. I don't want to talk about
He
him.
is just
Anywho,
anyway, we won't go there.
yeah,
Namaste. So what I started doing was writing a list of things about what structure can mean and what it can bring. And one of the biggest things for our family anyway was I involved my kids in creating the structure. So when we were putting, new parameters in place or we did this, there was a little bit of, I'm not talking like namby-pamby, oh, sweetie, honey, is it okay if you go to bed on time at 7:30? Is that okay with you? Because F that in a bag of chips. Like, if you are asking your child to do something, you are in effect telling them to do something. So don't end it with
yeah.
okay,
Oh
because that
God,
gives
yeah,
an
yeah.
option for them to say
We
no. And
Yeah,
that's not the outcome that you want. So
yes, we can be very literal.
what's that?
We can be very literal. If there's an okay,
Anyway,
it's a choice, and you
anybody.
can choose not to.
Yes. And you're not there to like, I'm not talking. So when I say I built it with them, there was not extensive
Yeah,
negotiation. My kids are now 25 and almost 24. And as my husband said again recently, this is not a democracy. you, you don't pay rent. And we're supporting you in school and whatever. So this is not a democracy. This is 95% dictatorship, 5%, love you. Um, so a couple of the things that came up when you talked about structure, because I know for some parents, especially if you were raised the way you were, that trying to implement that can be a huge
yeah,
retraining, right? Whereas I came from a home that was you had dinner at a certain time. This was the expectation. My mom cleaned the house on certain days. When she went to work,
yeah,
we had a list of chores. Grocery shopping was done on the same day. I did have a moment where I thought to myself, that could explain why my kids' rooms are disasters because my daughter cleans the exact same way that I clean, which is it gets to a certain level and then I do a blitz. I run a business, I run a not for profit, you know, husband, two kids, whatever. There's four adults living in
yeah.
our house. Still falls mostly to me to figure that kind of stuff out. So that does explain overall our house runs well. Overall, we all know that it's about pitching in and everybody, I don't care who the kid is, your child is capable, even if it's one toy. If all
Yeah,
they do is one toy and they pick
yeah,
that up and they put it in a bin and that's all that they can accomplish, that is awesome because
yeah,
you've now shown that kid that you have expectations. And maybe the consequence is if they don't want to pick that toy up and put it in the bin, then you put it up on a shelf and they don't get it back for a
yeah,
week. And that
yeah,
leads us into the consequences conversation because that
yeah,
is something that I don't see happening in a
yeah.
lot of situations. Parents are so tired. Uh-oh, somebody's frozen. It could be me. I should pause. What's going on?
Was it you
What's that?
was it you
I
that
was saying bad
lost
words.
the?
That's why we paused. Yes.
Oh,
So
I lost you altogether.
no, I know, because
Okay,
that's a whole nother, we won't get into that right now because my blood pressure will go up and we're trying not to do that today.
okay,
Um,
okay. Namaste.
I'll say the weather, but that's not it. So where we broke off was leading into consequences. And I think that's one of the things that is missing from parenting today. And that comes from a variety of things, right? We are now in, I think it's the third or fourth generation of women working outside the home and that balance of parenting and that balance of time away from kids and all that kind of stuff. And so some parents, they're like, I don't spend enough time with my kid as it is. I don't want to spend it fighting. Okay. First of all, you need to relook at your priorities. But second of all,
Yeah.
I had a conversation with a parent at a trade show, and I think I've shared this before, but it always comes up in these times. And it was a 12-year-old uh, little guy, and spending too much time gaming. And what suggestion did we have for that? Because, this. And mom was clocking in at around 5'10, 5'11, and I'm 5'3 if I stretch, right? So this is significant
Oh, she's
because,
talking about height. Got it.
yeah. So I said to the mom, I said, so you're about 5'10? She says, yeah. I said, how tall is your husband? Oh, he's like 6'4" or something. And our other kids are like 6'2" and 6'8". These are big people. I said, how tall is your 12-year-old right now? Oh, he's just like, he's down here. I said, okay. So do you want to deal with this behavior while he's 12 and his amygdala is still online and testosterone's not flooding his body and he's not full of a variety of emotions that he doesn't understand and body changes and whatever? Or do you want to wait until he's 16? He's now clocking in at 200 pounds, probably over 6 foot. Testosterone's going mental. His amygdala is offline, which is what controls impulse and helps with anger management and whatever. And he's autistic. You tell me which gorilla you want to wrestle with. I said, because
Yeah.
if you don't step in now, it will step on you later.
And like there's a balance between like there's sort of three ways of parenting,
Yeah,
at least. There's where you're picking you do have to pick the battles you want to fight, because there can be several aspects, and this goes with any kind of kid, not just autistic
yep,
kid.
yep.
You know, there are particular things that a child's going to do. There could be many particular things that a child does that may be inappropriate or against the family rules, or are annoying, and you can't deal with them all at the same time,
Agreed.
because if the child's autistic, they will never understand what, if you're trying to deal with six things at once, they will never understand which of the six
All of them.
things, and therefore they don't understand any of them. So it picking on everything will not actually let the child learn how to learn what it's wrong, b what's right, and c how to get there. So
Or how to get
um
out of there. Like if they got themselves into a
yeah,
scrape, how do they resolve it? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The flip side is not really dealing with anything, because you're walking on eggshells, so you don't want to deal with anything.
Ugh.
um in the middle is what I call, you know um flexible rigidity. It's where I set there's a boundary of
Hmm?
things that are hard things that I'm going to deal with, but I'm going to give the kids the choices to make mistakes, do things inside here, and I'm not going to I'll guide them. I'm there to tell them, I'm there to offer them suggestions. I'm there to, sort of help them, out of it. But the things that are the hard rules, the things that are the areas where I know they need to work to be done in, those are the things that I've intentionally decided to hold the ground on. And
Yeah.
what I found when I started doing this, like at first there's little, butts against the things, but when they realized, no, I'm holding these boundaries,
Yes.
they didn't push against this. And then they had the ability to make the choices, the decisions, and have some of that control that they never really felt before. And autistics, if they're being controlled, when you're seeing behaviors is communication. It's a form of communication. Behaviors
Yeah.
telling you that something, a good behavior is telling things, are going well, and bad or difficult or challenging or interfering behaviors are telling you something's not quite right underneath. And when you're seeing pushback against, when you're highly disciplined, highly structured, and you're seeing pushback and whatnot, eh, listen to that. Like
Yeah,
listen
we had a
and
lot of fun as well. Like, don't get me wrong, I wasn't cracking a whip,
oh yeah,
but my kids,
oh
yeah,
yeah,
my kids knew at night what our nightly routine was. And that
yeah,
always went rather smoothly. Our morning
yes,
routine was a little more,
Yeah, loosey goosey.
challenging because Thomas and time management, his perception of time, which has gotten better
Mhm.
with a lot of pushing,
Yeah,
caused frustration. So I didn't want to yell at him.
yeah.
And both of my kids will say, I'm a yeller. I know I am. It's not great. I'm not proud of it, but it is what it is. And I'm not hitting them.
Oh, you're
So,
a sailor.
thumbs up.
It makes sense.
What's that?
You're a sailor. It makes sense.
I am sailor adjacent. This is pretty tidy language for what we've been. Because yesterday, I got to tell you, I was helping my business partner with something and there was a lot of MFs going on. Luckily, she's got sailor mouth too.
Nick
So she's
Fury
just
is your
laughing at me.
spirit animal.
What's that?
Nick Fury is your spirit animal.
Nick Fury. Well, Samuel L. Jackson is my secret
Yeah,
crush.
yeah.
But yeah, between him and what's that pirate guy out of Johnny Depp? Probably similar.
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah.
Jack
Jack.
Sparrow.
Jack Sparrow.
Yeah. I don't know too many women that cuss in movies, but that's a whole. Oh, Helen Mirren and Judi Dench both cuss.
Yeah, yeah.
Thumbs up.
Oh, and
I'll take those.
I love that the Bella Ramsey, who plays Ellie in Last of Us. She plays it's an HBO thing. You haven't heard about it?
Little rabbit foo foo walking through the forest. We're gonna go back to consequences because I'm in. I know. Yeah. See, thank you, Bunny. So our kids, my son was in Cubs. We had family skate night. We had family swim night. We would go for ice
Yeah,
cream. We go to farms. We would go strawberry picking. We had story time. We went to a ton of movies. I took my kids to live theater and musicals. We took them to like everywhere. So we did have a lot of fun. But at night, it was bath bottle bed. And in the morning, it was get dressed, have your breakfast, brush your teeth, get your shit, get out the door and make your lunch in the meanwhile because they ended up making their own lunches by the time they were like 9 and 8 or something like that. That's a whole nother conversation. So the routine helped because what I think it also helps with, which is something that we've discovered through NanoWorks, and that's not a gratuitous mention, but as we've started to use the platform that we've built to help employment specialists, we've discovered unexpected benefits for the autistic users. A couple of them, which apply here, is when you have routine and you have expectations of behavior and you have consequences, you build executive function skills, you reduce decision fatigue, because one of the things that precipitates an explosion of behavior can be that they've had to make too many decisions about too many things in too short a time. Are you having boom booms? Sorry, Maddie's having some reactions, and I think there's thunder and lightning in the area.
my chair shook.
Oop,
It was that
hello?
close. It
You didn't have
was
to put a
like
quarter in
I
it.
felt it all through my body. That I couldn't not. When I first saw the lightning, I was like, okay, I'm gonna hold it, try not to react. But then when it hit the chair,
No, react away. I
bad
just want to
deal.
make sure you're okay. But that's when we
I'm
talk about
okay.
structure, yeah, there's very positive outcomes from that. We're not talking about being militant 24/7, but what we began with was the concept of not abdicating parental responsibility and structure in the home to services because you
Yeah,
are then fighting against the service. One thing I
yeah,
always said to the school was tell me what you're doing here and I'll tell you what works at home. So then we're
yeah,
both doing the same thing. And we had a situation where a couple of times where the school didn't listen. And we ended up in not great situations because of that. And I read them the riot act. I'm like, I told you at the beginning,
yeah,
you help me, I'll help you. I am here for you because this is my kid. And if I don't get it right now, I can't get it right later. And I'm not having him living in my basement when he's 40 because he can do this.
yeah,
So some of the things that have come up when you talked about what does structure mean? What can it mean for you? um, is reasonable consequences, right? So age appropriate, action appropriate
yeah.
consequences.
And time
Time,
specific in the
time
moment.
specific. Yes, you can't 2 days later punish your kid for not putting their toy away. That's
Yeah,
not a thing. But if you are also having issues with keeping your own stuff tidy, it is also not reasonable to crap on your kid when that's the model that you're setting. So that
exactly.
becomes a whole evaluation of what you can live with. And
Yep.
what hill do you want to die on? That's not going to be it
Yeah.
if your house is an armpit and your kid won't pick up a toy
Exactly.
because you're not modeling that
Yeah.
behavior. Time warnings. I used to do this, time warnings and behavior expectations before we went out. And it wasn't so much for me. It was we would go over, and this is again before we even knew we had a diagnosis. It was here's where we're going. Here's what
Yeah.
it's going to be like. Here's what's going to happen to
Yep.
you if you act like a poop head. And I would give them 15-minute and 10-minute and 5-minute warnings about getting shoes on because we had identified in Thomas that stuff
Oh
like
yeah.
getting shoes on and whatever was already a pain in my ass.
Yeah.
So
There are fine motor control issues that many of us have, and it's about processing an instruction and physically doing it
yeah, yeah.
are bit
Laces was not a
differently
hill.
approached.
Yeah. Laces was not a hill I was
Same,
going to die on.
yeah,
He does
same here.
now 100%. So we persisted, but he was probably in
Yeah,
Velcro type shoes because I was not going to turn that into a
yeah.
struggle bus every morning.
Well, that's again,
So
like some things we accommodate instead of
yeah,
some things we accommodate, and some things we encourage, and some things we
work
instruct.
towards. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
So expectations of behavior. And what we mean by that is if you are a house that doesn't cuss and all of a sudden your kid comes home and starts cussing, okay. That's not a behavior that we're okay with in this house. Physical altercations, my children were not allowed ever to
yeah,
beat on each other or hit back at me or whatever. Corporal punishment in our house was an extremely last resort, safety based situation. So,
yeah,
with my kid and his triple diagnoses, if I'd asked him 3 times to do X and, it was starting to become a safety issue, there was a little track on the bum because I'm like, and we would do 1, 2, 3 magic and we would do stairs, like all kinds of stuff before we got there. But
yeah,
that's a whole nother podcast. Structure means routines. And so
yeah.
identifying how you want your evening to go so that your morning
Mhm.
starts better and not
Start
going
with
off
one
routine on
thing.
the weekends. What's that?
Yeah, start with one thing,
Start with
one
one thing.
routine. Yeah,
Yeah. If your kid's in school, then every night they put their backpack by the front door because that will be the
yeah,
thing they forget. And you go through
yeah,
the backpack with
yeah,
them and make sure that if it's wintertime, that their indoor shoes are in there, that they're whatever they need to have, you go through it, like you unpack it with them when they get home, you repack it that night because you do not want to be on the struggle
yeah,
bus in the morning.
yeah,
Structure reduces decision fatigue for you and your kids. This builds capacity to do better because if you have routines in place and you have certain places that you put things and all the rest of it, then you don't got to think about where
yeah,
your car keys are. I have reading glasses on every single chair in every spot in my house because I do not want to
yeah,
look for them. And by the way, my husband wears the same 1.5s. And so if I don't do that, then he does not mind wearing my pink cat eye glasses and I got to be careful. So he now has his own sets that he has to take care of because he steals mine, the little bugger.
yeah,
Um, you started to mention something earlier, which I think when I say this out loud, this was where you were heading. Structure and routine reduces the stress of the unexpected.
yeah,
Unexpected causes like
yeah.
balloons
Always.
freak
Yeah,
the living crap out of me because the
yeah.
helium or the mylar ones I can do.
Uh-huh.
But those
Uh-huh.
crappy little rubbery things that burst if you look at them, they make me crazy because you never know when those little effers are going to pop. Hate that.
Yeah,
Imagine living your whole life every day
yeah,
with the fear that the balloon's going to pop.
yeah.
Whatever your little stress inducer is,
Yep.
times that by 25. If there's no routine in the house and you're autistic
Yeah,
and you haven't, mom and dad haven't put any work into, hang on,
yeah.
we're almost there.
Oh, good.
Um, um, involve all the family in the creation of the structure and the routines, right? Like, don't be willy
Yes.
nilly about it. But okay, for us, it was, what was it? No, it was bath, book, bottle, bed. What book are we
Yeah.
going to read today? which sippy cup do you want to use? Which do you like if your kids
Yeah.
are little? When your kids are bigger, you still need to reinforce sleep routine. And if you are staying up until
Absolutely.
1 o'clock in the morning, they don't care that that's not age appropriate for them. They're like, mom and dad are doing
Yeah.
it, so I'm good to go.
Yeah.
And once you've created this routine, I'm sorry, folks, it has to be Monday to Sunday. You can't take
Yeah.
weekends off on a regular basis and allow your, if
Oh,
there's a special
it throws
occasion.
us. It throws
Yeah.
us. The summer. Okay, so I hated August in summer. July, I had camps, so there was things to do. Like so, there's still some structure in my life. August had nothing. I'd play sports, but there'd be I most kids were like, we don't want to think about school. We can just do anything we want. And I was like, I need something to
The
do. Like
routine will be
I
back.
can do things by myself, but I
Yeah.
need some structure. Like my sister and I invented many thousands of games in August, I think, because to keep ourselves busy. But
Yeah.
even still, I don't like the summer because all of the things I'm involved with tend to be more September to June for some reason. So yeah, it's important. It's important to have similar structure in the weekends as during the week. However, see where because the kids have structure of school during the day, that's where you can have the play and flex free
Oh
time
yeah. We used to
for
go off on adventures all the
during the day.
time.
But their bedtime should be only as
Sacred.
either the same or only a small variance from what it is in the week. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it throws them. So here's one thing I just learned. A study was put out last week. Autistics are really good at
Finishing a
getting
sentence.
getting a habit, getting a
Oh,
habit, right?
yeah.
We can hold a habit longer than most people do, but the moment something happens that breaks that, like that we just like miss a day or two, we have a harder time getting back to that habit. So
Yeah.
it's understandable that you're starting off and you've got a great week, but you just have complete flex weekend. It like and the kids have a horrible week the next week, even though the structure is the same in the week.
Yeah.
How the weekend maybe you may need to put some structure back into the weekend.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say is one of the biggest problems with the not giving routine or accepting all behaviors that an autistic has because, well, they're autistic, so we have to let it go.
Oh,
The problem with that is the effect on siblings. I guarantee you, in the families that don't hold any responsibility to the autistic,
100%.
they're holding it to the sibling, and it is essential.
Resentment.
Yeah, exactly. Resent like I that's happened in this house amongst a kid who thought that they were neurotypical and now aren't because they were never
Well, never
neurotypical. They
were,
just
but
the normal one. I'm the normal one. No, you weren't. But hey, anyways, but the resentment is strong. And it's, we talked about, death is inevitable. At some point, we are not going to be there for our autistic kids. Who will be left? Siblings. And it's important for all kids. The sibling relationship can be the most beneficial thing for your kids in their adult lives.
yeah.
I know in my case, my sister, she is my best friend. We've had a rough time up and down, but we've like we were each other's best friends when we were young. Teenage years were a bit difficult because I was interested in her friends and she was interested in her friends, and that was a problem for her.
Oh,
I
hello,
don't
Sailor.
want to share my friends. I want my own friends. But we're very similar, so we're gonna have similar kind of friends. It's just natural. And we're only 14 months apart, so the age difference is very
Oh,
like
that's my
it's not
kids.
there.
My kids are 13
Yeah.
months apart. Irish
Yeah,
twins.
and my oldest are 11 months. Yeah, my oldest are 11 months apart. It's
Yeah.
so it's important to build. It's important to foster that sibling relationship. So you need to treat your kids similarly, not equally, because need water. There are different levels of ability at a particular time. I
True.
assume agency. I presume competency. I presume that with enough help, support, and structure, my kids will be able to do particular things. It's, I hold that out as it can happen, not that it should or shouldn't. Bringing it back to last week.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, but it's important to treat them similarly, and to, the only way you can do that is to have some structure to be able
Yep.
to support all your kids, right? Again, I use that, I have the boundaries of what I'm going to hold to, and I'm going to hold them to all of the kids. I may give privileges outside of that box because they've shown
They've earned it.
responsibility. So there may be another box that they can, a bigger
Yeah.
box for some of them to play in, but they're all going to be able to do, I I require one thing of my kids for sure: clean up your own
Yeah.
crap. There's
Oh,
more
I
that I
wish.
want them to do, and there's more that I hold them to, but that's the one line I'm going to keep holding to them all of the time, to the point where they know I'm going to say it. They may not do it, but they know I'm going to say it, so they're like,
Yeah.
Dad. But
But that's,
it's,
I know that
yeah,
special needs kids, right? And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but kids with diagnoses take up more of your time. And they should,
mhm,
because you have a limited window to make a difference for those kids. What happens though, from a sibling perspective, and I know my daughter would agree, is that it does start to build resentment because they see all of the time and effort. We worked really hard to, if we had to bring Vanessa to an appointment for Thomas, that we did something fun after, and we either got an ice cream or we did or whatever, unless I was in a
yeah,
mad rush. But we tried to make it positive,
yeah,
because that has its own impact. And she knows in the house, he's held to the same standard, right? She used to say, "Oh, you're giving him a buy, for certain things." And I'm like, in some cases, yeah, it is an autism thing. And there's nothing
that's the
I can do
reality.
about that. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, it is. So should we go a little gentle on him for a couple of different things? Yes. And you want to know why? Because he pulls his weight in the house and he does
exactly.
this.
Yeah,
So I said, so in context, yeah, I'm gonna pull him off the struggle bus a little bit because he doesn't deserve that. And
yeah,
the last of the list was that structure builds life skills, because I've told my son his room is a mofo of a disaster. And I've been very blunt for many years and said, nobody, nobody is going to want to live with that. And you don't show pride in yourself. You don't show pride in your room. I spent a lot of money allowing him to redesign his room. He painted it. He chose what for everything. And I'm like, do you understand that you disrespect the effort I put in to giving you a space that reflects where you are in life when you keep it like a
mhm,
disaster? And if you can't even keep a whole room tidy, how are you going
yeah,
to keep an entire apartment or house clean? Are you going to live
yeah.
like this in your entire? Because if you're with a roommate
That's
and this caca
that was a
spills
huge
out
issue for
into
me.
the,
Yeah,
what's that?
that was a huge issue for me. That was a huge issue in relationships for me. I had to unlearn so many um inherited behaviors.
But our house is tidy. That's the thing, though. Like there are spots
Yeah,
of chaos in our house. Don't get me
yeah,
wrong. But by and large, no garbage on the floor. Everything has a place. Kitchen's clean and tidy. Like, main living areas.
yeah.
Like we're not a hoarder house. We're not, there's nothing like that going on. Could it be tidier? 600%. Is that a hill I'm going to die on? Hmm.
No,
But the level of caca in his room
yeah.
just sends me over the edge. So he now, every time he comes out of his room, shuts the door so that I can't see. I'm like, I am gonna walk in. I know. And I'm like, you might think that's working. There are times where you're not home and I open the door. So pretending that it's not there is not a thing. So
Yeah,
anyway, so this structure builds life skills,
yeah,
also builds communication skills,
yeah,
because you need to talk with your child in a productive way around what your expectations are as a parent and what you're going to do. The boundaries
yeah,
you were talking about, structure builds choices, it reduces
yeah,
decision fatigue, creates good habits, and also helps
yeah,
build or reduces sibling resentment. And
yeah,
trust me, if you are a parent listening, We get it. We're not
Hmm.
expecting you to be superhuman. We are not expecting
Yeah.
you to upend everything you've been doing if you've identified with some of the challenges that we're presenting here. And nobody's going to do it right. My kid now
Yeah.
opens his bedroom door, and I have lost my junk so many times on him for that. As soon as he opens the door, because he knows it's a mess, he'll be like, Mom, I don't want to fight about it. Because he knows we're going to fight about it.
Yeah. One
And
of
I've
the
created that, and that's my bad.
yeah, just getting back to um therapy supports programs. You're you're as a parent, what you put into that is what you're going to get out of it. If you don't get involved, you're not going to get as much out, and your child's not going to get as much out of it. The more
Yeah,
you get involved, well, this is program, school activities. What you
home
put
life.
into that
Yeah,
is you have done an expectation of getting out of that um, uh, uh, a similar outcome, and
yep,
it's our job as parents, regardless of the disability status of our kids, it's hard.
yep.
Parenting is hard. Parenting in this day and
It
age,
is.
with really with technology everywhere and expectations and people hovering and the drone parents, it's hard. But
Worth it.
when we put the work in, it's really worth it, and our kids are going to be it's
Better
going to have better
humans.
outcomes, and
Yep.
you'll grow gray later in
No, you
life.
won't.
I can't guarantee that.
I mean, if you're watching the
Nope.
video, stripes on a cracker, like I got no color
I'm
left, man.
pretty silvery now.
Oh, stop your noise. I have braided your hair. There's
Well,
barely anything in your beard. Yes,
mm,
that's true.
yeah,
So as we
very
wrap
pretty.
up, the whole point of having this chat was to sort of focus on it began because of the negative impact of helicopter parenting and the
Yeah,
deficits that that creates in your kids. They're already struggling with enough, and they don't need you to fix everything for them. They don't need you to do it for them because it's easier for you. And you
yeah,
are creating a mess that will come back on you in 10 years in a spectacular fashion. And we
yeah.
know it's hard. And we know it's hard. Please don't, I mean, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
please don't drink because of this. Um,
Water's great. I love drinking.
Water's fantastic. Sip the water back because actually that does help you deal with stress better. Um,
Uh-huh.
a few of the resources that I have used, one is Organizing the Disorganized Child, and I don't have the author's name here, but if you type that title in, the good news is I did that with my son when he was 14 and he needed to start managing assignments for high school. And the reason I did that is because the way you organize your space may not actually be the best way for your child. So if you process information one way and your child happens to be a visual processor, then they need to have a whiteboard up on their walls so that they can put their assignments up or sticky pads or like whatever that looks like, calendars, things like that. And I actually
Mhm.
discovered through doing those exercises with Thomas, um, my backpack that I had been using when I went back to school when I was 40 something had too many pockets. And because of my ADD, right, I was just putting stuff in it because it's pockets and pockets are great and I can put all of this stuff in it, but then I could never find the shit or I had to go through 10 damn pockets to find the whatever. So the next time I bought a backpack, which is the one I have now, it's got three pockets and that's it. So there's only three places things could be, and that's great. That helps you identify maybe where you're
Yeah.
having a challenge in your own home organization and what you could do. Solutions don't have to be expensive, they don't have to be fancy, but they do have to be there because chaos contributes to stress, it contributes to
Mhm.
depression, it contributes to anxiety, it gets in the
Yep.
way of your kids' ability to learn and feel secure. It's no bueno.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
the other two books, if you're a reader, are Kids Are Worth It by Barbara Coloroso. And she talks about how you build in reasonable consequences for behavior. And this is
Really
regardless of diagnosis or age. And then the last one that Maddy and I are going to be working through, I've already read it and whatever, is The Loving Push by Temple Grandin. And what Dr. Grandin talks about is obviously from an autistic perspective about the negatives of helicopter parenting, the negatives of not setting expectations, and the negatives of not believing your child is capable. And she gives you action items for how you can build that into your routine and build that into your parenting, and don't feel guilty about it. When you are creating routine and setting consequences and doing all of that, this is a very positive thing. Maddy made a really valid point. Don't become militant about it, but you can't abdicate it either,
Yeah.
because there are consequences for both sides. Like, you don't want to make your kid a nervous Nelly, but you don't want them to believe that they can't do anything either.
It's you set one routine and you work on that one routine. It's
Yep.
like a domino. The next one becomes a little bit easier, a little bit easier,
Yep.
a little bit easier, a little bit easier until you've knocked all the dominoes. And when you've knocked all the dominoes, you've actually removed barriers between you and your kid and their future outcome.
And it just reduces the yelling. That's what I
Yeah,
can tell you, is that it reduces the yelling, and it just reduces the yelling. And if you don't address some of these issues, you will start to resent your kid, and you will
yeah.
start to resent your life because of the
Mhm.
stress that's in there. And it is not your child's responsibility to fix this. And if your
Yeah,
child has passed 20 and you're trying to fix this, it is going to be harder, but it is possible. Like
yeah.
Maddy said, you could even, here's an exercise we do as part of our development team here at Spiro, is each person will take a pad of sticky notes and a Sharpie, and you will write on there what you think the issues are. And then you just
Mhm.
click a piece of blank wall, and everybody puts up their ideas. And then you start grouping them. And once you've grouped them, you start to see the buckets that you want to work on, but you also start to see, likely, that some
Mhm.
of the things are the same. It also could be quite
Yeah,
eye-opening if your child is sharing things that you hadn't considered.
yeah,
And that's where communication skills, right? Your child starts to
yeah.
see how to collaborate, and they start to see how to communicate, and they start to see that they have some control over their situation. And I don't mean dominance, but they have some control. Lack of control creates chaos.
Yep.
So were we good?
We're good, I
That was
believe.
informative. So we're both working on stuff to support parents because we see it missing in the marketplace, and we see it missing with parents. So stay tuned, because more will come from that. But we appreciate you joining us today. And again, we're both autistic parents, or parents of autistics. So we've been on the struggle bus. We get it. We've done the fight.
Yeah.
And Maddy actually does have rose-colored glasses. So
I really do.
their view of the world is, however,
Yeah.
as the parent of four autistic individuals and being autistic themselves, they're just validating what we're seeing.
Yep.
So
Yes, we are.
come on, folks, get on it. You can do it. Woohoo! We're cheerleading for you. Picture either of us in one of those unicorn blow up costumes dancing for you. Go. Did you see that? It was so funny.
I saw
Um,
it. I saw that post. I saw that post. Yep, I could
I
do
would
it.
be
I
that
would
woman.
do it. Yep, I
Would
would
you?
be, but it would be in a wheelchair. Ooh, I could be a bronchosaurus.
Challenge accepted. Okay.
All
So
right.
we're going to continue for the month of April on obviously things that are autism focused. And Maddy is an incredible advocate around creating, I always get them confused. Acceptance versus, not versus, but over and above awareness. Everybody's aware of what
Yeah.
autism is and
Yeah.
that it's here.
Yep.
I struggle a little more with the acceptance piece because I think we should be past that as well, but I'm
Oh,
on
I
board.
agree. Yep. We need to move
I'm
to
on board.
accommodation, a culture of accommodations, which brings us inclusion.
T-shirt. Um, and in the next couple of weeks, we get to meet up again because we're going to be at the Autism Alliance of Canada's Leadership Summit in Ottawa. So, maybe we should do
Yes.
one there.
We should do one there. I was
Okay.
planning on doing a live each day, but we could do it. We could do a podcast there. Yes,
Can
I'll
do a
bring my
live
special
there.
fancy dancy microphone. Yeah, we can do it
I have
live.
a fancy
I
dancy travel
feel
microphone.
alive. I feel alive. I feel alive.
All
No, no,
right.
no.
So we're going to go now because when we break into dancing, that means we're both tired and done. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, folks. My name is Elizabeth Plouffe and my co-host, Maddy Dever. And this is the Autistic Rambler. And we will talk to you soon. You're going to say goodbye?
Bye.
So you
I just
can't
did.
wave because people are listening. Okay.
I can wave, but I did say goodbye. See, you probably didn't hear me because I was waving. Goodbye.
And on that note, toodle pip. Thank you for joining us on Across the Desk and our new series, The Autistic Rambler. Please visit spirocareerscanada.ca to learn more about the tools we're building with the autism community, and please visit theautisticrambler.com to learn more about Maddy Dever.